This is Jim Grace with a talk on attribute option combos, etc., or the long version. Category option combos, attribute option combos, category option combo groups and group sets, and how to model additional dimensions, both simple and hierarchical, using these in DHIS2. This is a talk I gave in Oslo on November 1st. The recording failed to record, so I am doing a studio version. Hopefully in the subsequent talks I give, we can get the recording working and you'll get the live version recorded. I'm going to talk about, first, a review of category options, and you'll see why when we get to attribute options, because they're based on category options. Category options are what we know as disaggregations. This should be a review for a lot of people. Disaggregations based on age and sex is the most common example, or it can be test result, or it can be target versus actual, or any other things that you can dream up. And then we're going to talk about how that relates to what I call data set dimensions with attribute options. So first of all, let's look at category options, and I'm going to give 3 examples starting with 2 dimensions because that's what makes it make sense, and then show how the data works if you just have a single dimension or if you have no dimensions at all, no disaggregations from a data element, for example. So the common example usually given for 2 data element disaggregations is age and gender. For example, in the Sierra Leone demo, you have ART enrollment stage 1, which is broken down by age and gender. And so here you assign the data element to a category combination of HIV age plus gender. The reason it's HIV age here is that often in an implementation you have more than one way to break down the age groupings. So I've seen in other instances TB age, for example, how for the purpose of tuberculosis treatment you want to break down the ages there. So this one is called HIV age. So you see that that category combination that you assigned the data element to is related in the database to the 2 categories. One is HIV and the other is gender. Each of those categories has several different category options. One of the options under HIV age is less than 15 years old. One of the options, in fact, one of the 2 options under gender is female. And then finally, if you look down at the bottom, the data value table for each aggregate data value in the database. Actually, these apply also to event data, but for each value in the database, there is a category option combo ID that says for that data value what combination of disaggregations apply. And so that will point to a category option combination of less than 15 years and female. So you can see how the metadata values in the database compare with each other. What if you only have a single data disaggregation, such as age? Well, in that case, you assign the data element. In this case, a real example from the Sierra Leone demo is HIV currently on care. It's broken down by age, but not by gender. So in this case, you have a category combination, HIV age, and you notice it has the same name as the category, HIV age. We still use the same structure in the database, even if you don't have a combination of categories with more than one category in them. We still have a category combination that has a single category. And a category option combination that in fact is a combination of only one category option, so it's not much of a combination that way, but it keeps all the database structures the same, whether you have more than one category that you're disaggregating on, or if you only have a single category. It all fits the same model. So we create a category combination of HIV/AIDS with only one category belonging to it, etc. And the data value table then will point to the category option combination of less than 15 years. What if you don't use any disaggregations at all? Well, we have an answer for that. In each DHIS2 instance, we start out by defining a default category combination, which has a default category, only one category in that combination as well. The default category has only a single category option called, of course, default, and the category option combination is default for all of the data elements, all of the data values using this data element that is assigned to the default category combination. So again, the same database structures work, they're just all stubbed out, so you don't have any choice in values. And as an example of a data element that uses the default category combination from the Sierra Leone demo, whether the facility has access to running water. There is no disaggregation breakdown on that data element. So now that we've seen data element dimensions, we will now talk about data set dimensions. They are attribute option combos. The term data set dimension and data element dimension are really my terms. I haven't seen them anywhere in the DHIS2 documentation, but I think that helps to make sense of them. When you're entering data for a disaggregation, often you want to enter all the values, the cross product, if you will, all the ages times all the genders. And so you see, in this case, we have a couple of data elements that are broken down only by age, but typically in the data entry in the top section, you specify all of them. And if you look at the bottom section, the data set dimensions are different. This typically you just select one data set dimension for the whole screen of data that you will enter. You're not in one screen entering the data set dimensions for all the implementing partners or all the products. This is a screenshot again from the Sierra Leone demo showing the data set ART monthly summary, which is set up to choose a category combination of implementing partner and project. So let's look at how data set dimensions are modeled. And just for fun, I'm going to go in the reverse order, starting with 0 dimensions, then 1 dimension, then 2 dimensions. 0 data set dimensions, it kind of looks like 0 data set dimensions for the disaggregation. You see a lot of defaults. But what you see down at the bottom in the data value table is that we've added a new column that's there for every data value in the database called attribute option combo ID. And this column points to the category option combination. It points to all the same tables that the category option combo ID pointed to. But now this gives us a chance to say not only what was the disaggregation for a data value using the category option combo ID, but also what are the extra data set dimensions that we are modeling using the attribute option combo ID. So again, in the Sierra Leone demo, the data set, child health, is assigned a category combination of default. And notice also that with a disaggregation, you assigned the data element to a category combination, and that's why one of the reasons why I call that a data element dimension. Whereas with the attribute option combo, you assign the category combination to a data set, which is one of the reasons why I call the attribute option a data set dimension. So then if you have a single data set dimension, for example, the data set emergency response in the Sierra Leone demo has a category combination of target versus result. And similarly to how we saw with the category option combo ID and the data element dimensions, if you just have one dimension, the category combination is typically named the same as the category, and the combination of category options is typically named the same as the category option, since there's only one dimension you're trying to model. Finally, if we have two data set dimensions, then the category combination will be a real combination of more than one category. So in this case, again from the Sierra Leone demo, the data set ART monthly summary is assigned to a category combination of partner and project, which of course maps to the category partner and the category project. And the attribute option combo ID in the data value table will point to a category option combination such as UNICEF and clean water, which in the database will resolve to the category option UNICEF under partner and the category option clean water under project. Note that for the data element dimensions and the data set dimensions, I've just shown examples for 0, 1, and 2, but any number of additional dimensions are also possible, limited by the size of your database, limited by being able to represent all those combinations of all the dimensions in the database and the processing power you have and so on. But you can get the idea, I hope, from the examples of 0, 1, and 2. So that is how attribute options are stored in the database. How do you see the attribute options in analytics? There are two other things that can be used to organize the attribute options or the dataset dimensions in analytics that have been added. They are category option groups and category option group sets, and we'll see how they work in a moment. The impetus for first implementing this in DHIS2 was the use case that we had from PEPFAR. PEPFAR has what they call a mechanism, or a funding mechanism, that's like a project number that's used for all of the work they do, all of the money they spend, all of the results that they get, is credited to one of their mechanisms. And each mechanism is associated with a project partner that's out in the field doing the work, and with a U.S. government agency who oversees the work of that partner. So on the one hand, you can think of the mechanism as uniquely defining an agency and a partner. On the other hand, there's some supervision relationship from the agency to the partner, so they're not equals. But how do we model agencies, partners, and mechanisms in PEPFAR? This is actually how the attribute option combinations or the data set dimensions got started in the first place. So in the PEPFAR implementation, we have a category option group for each partner that works for PEPFAR. And the category options, indeed the category option combinations, because this is the one dimension case where we use a combination to specify a single option. So for example, the partner FHI 360 might have assigned to it the mechanism 1, 2, 3, 4. FHI 360 is a category option group containing all of the mechanisms assigned to it, and then partner is the name for the category option group set that contains all of the various partners, FHI 360 and the others. We use a different category option group set to model the U.S. government agency overseeing the work on that mechanism. Now, it turns out that a partner may have one mechanism with one U.S. government agency, such as USAID, might have a different mechanism associated with a different U.S. government agency. So, again, the mechanism uniquely determines the partner and the agency that are allowed to see that mechanism. And this is all done with sharing. We share the mechanism with the user groups that are defined for that partner in the various countries that that partner operates. And all this is driven, as we'll see in the presentation I will give later on PEPFAR, if you happen to see that. We will see how this is all driven from a U.S. State Department database that describes all the mechanisms and the relationships between agencies and partners and mechanisms. As a more complicated example of how to use these groups and group sets, a design exercise we have done. It's a possible future. It's not implemented, and it's not known if or when it will be implemented, but it's work that we were asked to do in case we go down this road, is to model not only an agency and a partner, but to break the partner apart into a prime partner and subpartners. In fact, there is a lot of subcontracting within the PEPFAR work, and a prime partner may do all the work on a mechanism by itself, or it may delegate some of that work to one or more subpartners. So again, this is a modeling decision that we have faced, and there's more than one way to do this with category option groups and group sets, as we will see in a moment. We can add subpartner as an extra data set dimension, and I'll show you in a moment a model with 2 data set dimensions that will model these 4 constructs of mechanism, subpartner, prime partner, and agency. Or we can continue to do it as a single data set dimension. And this is something that we looked at the pros and cons of and decided on one of them. But the PEPFAR case may not be the same as other cases. And the right decision for PEPFAR may not be the same as the right decision to model for another implementation. So I'll talk about those pros and cons as we look at the different models. So using 2 dimensions instead of 1, we could say that a category option combination now refers to 2 different categories. One of those categories being the mechanism, and one being the subpartner. So for example, a data value in the database could reference the attribute option combination 1, 2, 3, 4 ITEC, which would refer to one category under mechanism, one category option under the mechanism category of 1, 2, 3, 4, and another category option under the subpartner category that refers to ITEC. And then the other dimensions would, the other category option groups and group sets would be as they are today, except that we would rename the category option group set partner to refer to the prime partner. In the case where the prime partner is doing the work themselves, then we could put the prime partner designation, in this case FHI 360, also in the category option under subpartner to make sure that the prime partner got full credit for doing all that work. So this is a way of doing it that has the attraction that it has minimal impact on the current model. We still have the same two category option group sets. We do a minor renaming of one of them, and we're just adding an additional category option. A downside of this is that every time you do data entry, you would choose the mechanism and the subpartner independently. And a related downside is that the system would calculate the cross product, all of the thousands of mechanisms and all of the hundreds of partners to get the mechanism subpartner combination, which might make a lot of metadata. Another way of modeling it, which we actually thought was more attractive, not only for the two reasons I mentioned about having to choose only one thing and the explosion of combinations of mechanisms and subpartners, but also for reasons of how data approval works, which is subject for another conversation at another time. We actually thought modeling subpartners with one dimension might work better for the PEPFAR case. We would still semantically define each category option combination as a combination of mechanism and subpartner, but we would also define each category option as the same thing, the same combination of mechanism and subpartner. This is how, in previous slides, we saw one dimension is modeled with a category having a category combination having only a single category. So in this case, we would have all of those higher level dimensions as category option group sets. So the category option 1, 2, 3, 4 ITEC would refer to the category option group 1, 2, 3, 4 under the mechanism group set, would refer to the category option group ITEC under the subpartner group set, would refer to the prime partner FHI 360 under the prime partner group set, and finally would refer to the category option USAID under the funding agency category option group set. So again, this is a way to show how what is in principle a hierarchical dimension between funding agency, prime partner, subpartner, mechanism. They're not in the mind of the installation at the same level, they're at different levels, but they can be modeled in DHIS2 as category option group sets. So the system actually thinks of them as the same level. What makes them at different levels is the sharing of the different category options with users from different groups. So for example, the ITEC users would have permission to see and even do data entry for mechanisms that ITEC is a subpartner on, as well as for the mechanisms that ITEC is a prime partner on. So all this requires that the sharing setup is properly configured in DHIS2. One final thing, and that is under category options, you can optionally define a couple of constraints. You can say that a category option has a start and end date if you want, or just one or just the other. You can also define a category option as being associated with one or more organization units. If you define a start date, it means that the category option cannot be used for data entry before that start date. If you define an end date, it means it cannot be used for data entry after that end date. If you define organization units for it, it means it can only be used to enter data for those organization units or their descendants. If you don't define any organization units for it, it means that the category option can be used for data entry for any organization unit. This talk, I believe, has been much shorter than the live one due to the absence of audience interaction and questions, but I hope it has been informative. This is the end of the talk, and I hope that if you're interested, you will see some of the other talks on other subjects. Thank you very much. Goodbye.